Hello everyone, this is Mumbo, welcome back to another Minecraft video, and in this one we're going to be asking the question, what is the fastest way to travel in Minecraft? Now everyone knows that traveling from point A to point B is extremely boring, and I want to help you guys expedite that process as much as possible. So behind me you can see we've got a bunch of 100 block long strips, and I'm going to be testing out all of the different modes of transportation in Minecraft to try and work out which one is the quickest. I think it's going to be fairly interesting, so let's crack on. So for this first section, I'm going to be referring to these guys as the basics. That's because these three are the most obvious forms of transportation that you can get in Minecraft. You've got running, then you've got minecarts, and then finally you've got horses. So starting things off with running, I managed to do the entire 100 block long strip in about 17.9 seconds, which sounds about right considering you run at 5.6 meters a second in Minecraft, which is really quite slow. So we're going to be moving on from that one straight onto the minecarts. I managed to do the entire strip in 12.8 seconds, which is a lot faster, but still relatively slow compared to the horses, which were absolutely insanely fast. First off, I spawned myself in the McLaren of horses. This thing was absolutely rapid, and it covered the entire 100 blocks in just 2.5 seconds, which is completely bonkers. But of course, that's very difficult to achieve in survival Minecraft, so instead, I spawned in your average, run-of-the-mill, slightly rough around the edges horse, and that still did the entire strip in just 4.9 seconds, which is over twice as fast as the minecart, and considerably faster than any of the other basics options. So I'm definitely going to be going for horses when it comes to basic transportation methods. Moving on from the basics, we've got a slightly more advanced set of builds. There's no redstone contraptions going on just yet, but these are just one step further from the basics. So first off, we've got the compressed ice and the trapdoors, then we have got the nether portals, then we have got ender pearls, and finally we have got this thing. This is for Minecraft 1.9, the collision boxes were added back in, so currently we have got 320 cows in this one location. When the player lands on the edge of that one, they get fired off into the distance, and I can promise you, that one's relatively fast. So let's get the ball rolling with the packed ice and the trapdoors. I managed to get a time of 5.8 seconds, but by the end of that, I could see my little meat things going down. I was beginning to get hungry, which means over a slightly longer tunnel, you're probably going to have to stop and eat, and that could be a little bit frustrating. As far as the nether portals are concerned, in creative mode, I managed to do it in 4.5 seconds, but sadly in survival mode you have to wait for the animation to play through, and that bumped the time up to 12.9 seconds, which is really quite slow for this test. But what I will point out is that nether portals are by far the best for longer distances. It divides the distance by 8, so if you combine that with another fast transportation method, then you're going to be getting places pretty quickly. For ender pearls, I just want all of us to take a moment to appreciate how accurate I was with the ender pearls. I managed to do exactly 100 blocks, landing perfectly on the finish line, and you can see in the video clip my absolute amazement at this. But I managed to do that entire strip in just 5.4 seconds, making it a pretty quick method of transport, and if you've got yourself an ender render and a good supply of ender pearls, that's going to make things quite easy. And finally, with Minecraft 1.9 comes the new collider launchers. These used to exist in Minecraft 1.3, I do believe, but then they were removed in some of the updates, but now they're finally back, and they are so much fun. I'd completely forgotten about these, but you land on the edge of the block, and then you just get shot off into the distance, and I managed to do the entire 100 blocks in 1.2 seconds, which makes it by far the fastest method of transportation so far, but there are a few negatives to do with this. First off, you've got to get a lot of animals into a 1x1 location. The second thing is, of course, you've got to deal with the lag of that many animals, and the third thing is you can't build loads of them because, once again, they cause quite a bit of lag. So that's something to look out for. And finally, for the last two designs, we have got redstone aided travel. So first off, we have got this ender pearl launcher, which launches ender pearls up to 75 blocks, which could cause a little bit of a problem in terms of this 100 block long test, but we'll get onto that in a couple seconds. But then finally, we have got this. Now this is a good old-fashioned TNT player launcher. The TNT drops down, it explodes, firing the player off into the distance, and yes, as I'm sure you can imagine, it is extremely fast. The first design that we're going to take a look at is, of course, the ender pearl launcher. Now I had pretty high hopes for this thing, but sadly it just wasn't to be. The fastest time I managed to get was 8.3 seconds, which is relatively fast. Of course, it's firing the ender pearl 75 blocks, then you have to walk the rest of the distance, but that's not even the problem. The problem was that I couldn't get it to work reliably. I kept firing the ender pearls into the slime blocks, teleport in there, or occasionally the ender pearls would go straight the way through the slime blocks, and it took me around about 10 minutes to successfully fire an ender pearl, which I don't know if that's just my technique, but what I can say is that it's not a method of transportation that I'm going to be using particularly often. And finally, onto the last design of today's video, we have got the TNT player launcher. Now this is by far my favourite. It pushed the player 100 blocks in just 1.43 seconds, which isn't actually the fastest, and of course when you take into account the TNT fusing sequence, it took 5.5 seconds, which isn't particularly quick in the grand scheme of things, and of course it uses a lot of TNT, but that's why it's good, because it uses quite a lot of TNT. So in conclusion, if you want the fastest possible way to travel 100 blocks, then of course you use the new animal colliders that are going to be introduced in Minecraft 1.9. If you want the most drama, then I would highly suggest using the TNT player launcher because it uses a lot of TNT. If you want the most practical, then I would probably suggest using a horse, and if you want to travel extremely long distances, then nether portals plus another fast transportation device, and you will be absolutely ready and set to go. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please be sure to hit that like button, and if you really loved it, then make sure to subscribe. But thanks for watching, guys. This has been Mumbo, and I'm out. I'll see you later.